Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Committee Reads. I am your host KWCs, and with me today I have GrayShot151, GVR, and Nagoda. Today we will be going over match 152, Gaira vs. Manda by Patrick Allen Green. Moonlight illuminated the ocean's churning waves, lightening the way for a Japanese fishing freighter making its journey inland after a long night of work. Fog had rolled in, the thickness of it made it a little difficult to see, but the low visibility was nothing the ship's captain couldn't handle. The crew continued on, blissfully unaware of the large human-like figure that had just slowly risen from underneath the ocean's churning waves. The giant, using the fog as coverage, watched as the ship sailed through the ocean. The creature's mouth began to water. He had been stalking the ship all night, and he couldn't stand the wait any longer. All he could think about was the delicious taste of the crew members aboard the freighter before him, and his thirst for flesh was insatiable. He had to strike now.
Gaira, as everyone knows, is a very patient hunter. Definitely just doesn't charge in at the moment's notice.
One of the crew members, a little drunk on sake, stepped outside the deck for a cigarette. He took a deep drag and exhaled as he looked up to admire the moon's gleaming light that was beaming down on his face. He blew a sigh of relief, for he was now on his way back home to his wife and children, whom he hated being away from, which means he's gonna die.
And he was 2 days away from retirement.
Suddenly he heard a loud shriek coming from the distance. He quickly turned around to see a large figure, shrouded by fog, slowly approaching the ship. "Frankenstein!" the man shouted as he quickly ran back into the ship to warn the rest of the crew. But it wasn't Frankenstein. It was a creature far worse. It was the green gargantua, Gaira. Pass.
Can I just say, who in their right mind looks down to the sea, sees a giant green mass, and like, oh yes, the scientist that made the monster.
Right.
There he is.
It's totally logical.
If you want to talk about a time skip, this is the era which people still refer to Frankenstein as Frankenstein's monster before everyone got, corrected them to and now they dare not get it incorrect.
It's are you referring to the scientist?
Scientist, the monster, or all the above? Yes. The monster continued making his way through the water toward the ship. Thick threads of jewel leaked from the hell that was Gaira's mouth as he grew closer and closer. Giant could hardly stand it any longer. His helpless prey was literally almost in his hairy grasp, but before he was able to grab his long-awaited prize, something big began to stir under the depths behind him. Before Gary had a chance to react, he felt a sharp pain.
Gary?
Gaira even had a chance to react. He felt a sharp pain in his mammoth right leg. Something had latched onto him. Gaira barely had a chance to let out a cry before he was instantly pulled underwater. Gaira began kicking violently at his attacker, trying everything in his power to free himself. The green giant managed to pull off a lucky shot, kicking the attacker right in its snout, giving him the opportunity to break free, and managed to identify the creature that had dared to attack him, the Leviathan, Manda. It had seemed that as Gaira stalked the fishing freighter, he had wandered into the territory of the hissing dragon-like monster. It was going to make its hairy green enemy regret it. Gaira threw his arms up, trying to intimidate the snake-like creature, but it only made Manda angrier. Before Gaira knew what hit him, Manda was already right back on him, this time coiling its long serpentine body around Gaira's bulk in an attempt to squeeze the very life out of him. Pass.
First off, how did the fishermen not notice Gaira going through the water, and how did Gaira
Everyone's
not notice Manda
ignorant.
swimming through the water until it was too late?
What they don't know is Godzilla's behind that monster, and King Ghidorah is stalking him.
Little do they also know that
chain.
baggage behind Godzilla while all this is going on.
Makita's somewhere like a few miles back.
And then Dagor is just hovering from space coming down to them.
And no one is the wiser.
And within the sun, staring onward, is Minya. Watching them all.
Its small claws digging into the green giant's flesh as it continued to squeeze harder and harder. Okay, that's the sentence. In response, Gaira sank his jagged teeth into the body of Manda, who hissed in agony and relinquished its grip ever so slightly, just enough for Gaira to slide his arms out. Gaira quickly grabbed onto the horns atop the snake's head and, using his superior strength, began lifting the serpent colossus right out of the water. By the time both monsters had surfaced, wrong monsters,
right.
was an apostrophe S. The entire crew of the fishing ship were now all standing on the dock, awestruck by the epic Behemoth versus Leviathan war that was going on before them. Hey, Behemoth's not here.
He won't be here for a while, don't worry about it.
Gaira let on an ear-splitting shriek as he managed to hoist Manda's entire body out of the water. Before the crew even had a chance to jump ship, Gaira threw the terrible dragon right at them. The entire freighter exploded as if it had been hit with a bomb when the serpent's body collided with it, leaving Manda's limp body floating atop the water along with the rest of the debris from the ship. It had seemed that the battle was over, and now Gaira had an even bigger meal on his plate. Pass.
Nagoda.
Pass.
Yeah, sorry about that. You cut out for a bit. Gaira licked his lips as he moved closer to claim his kill. But as he leaned over to collect its prize, Manda, with blinding speed, lunged at Gaira. Before Gaira even had a chance to let out a screech, Manda's razor-sharp fangs lashed around Gaira's throat, and it began coiling itself around Gaira's bulk once more. The serpent monster was only playing dead, and Gaira fell right for the Leviathan's trap. As Manda constricted more and more, Gaira's shrieks were silenced. The mighty giant thrashed, but Manda only squeezed tighter and tighter with every movement made by the hairy monster. Gaira was virtually helpless. He knew he was slowly being killed, and there was nothing he could do about it. Just then, the morning sun had begun to rise, and a brilliant shine illuminated Manda's scales, causing them to appear as if the dragon was glowing. After 5 minutes of helpless thrashing, Gaira's convulsing body finally stopped, signaling the golden dragon to release its hold. The battle was over, and the war for this gargantua had been lost. Manda then began to drag the oversized giant back down to the lower depths of his territory.
As
Winner,
it shows Showa
Manda
in the band.
Millennium.
Even though
I love how
Showa Manda
GVR
in the
pretty
band.
much said that at the same time.
Yeah. We can't, just change the title to
We
Showa.
totally had the hybrid thing implemented before. It was totally meant to be a thing.
Nah, I made the banner for this one. I could just legit tell you. I just could not find Millennium in a good way, so I was like, I'll just use it. It's close enough. It's fine.
It's almost
That's
like
the
there's
reason
no
why we
difference.
had to hybridize it.
Exactly.
Because you can't find pictures that are good
Without-
for Millennium Manda.
It's almost
and
like
connectors.
Millennium and Showa Manda are the exact same.
No difference.
No, you see, one has
No,
hair.
those are just a bunch of tiny spikes. Anyway. Yeah, no. Okay, I'll get on with the match first. Here's the thing, and I think we'll have to kind of read the rest of Patrick Allen Green's matches as we move forward. This was a case where I kind of liked the first half more. I liked more the setup. I liked the way, even if it's fundamentally basic, I think the way he describes sort of the setup of things is actually solid. Where his weaknesses lie as a writer, especially I guess early on too, is the fighting. There's some little bit, the imagery is there, but it's not conveyed properly to me. There's the occasional glimmer of, oh, that's pretty good. But at the same time, there's just something about the actual fighting that feels very basic. Very, kind of underwhelming to me. And it just sort of ends. Like I said, I think I had a very similar issue with, what was another match of his? I think, King Caesar versus Showa Gaigan, I think was another one of his. I think, that one, spoilers without getting the spoilers, that was another one where I liked more of the first half, which was setting everything up, than the actual fight that ensued. So it's I think he does a decent job with sort of like the setup of it, but the actual fighting, I think, kind of leaves a bit to be desired, in my opinion. But with that, right?
Dude, I already
exactly,
forgot the fight
exactly.
except like the ending.
That's kind of the thing. I think it leaves a lot to be desired. But like I said, that initial setup is the only thing I'll really remember from the match. It's basically the moment the match starts, it nosedives. Because I was surprisingly kind of immersed when I was reading that first part. Surprisingly, I was like, "Oh wow, this is actually pretty effective." And then the actual fighting started. It's like, "Oh, not really effective." But yeah, no, it's hard for me to give it praise. I have to say, like I said, I like that first half, but I think the actual fight kind of ranks it under average for me. So I'm not. It's not one I'll be remembering for its fight. I'll say that much. And I do like the mood for the banner in this one. I think the underwater lighting gives it a nice, atmosphere with the sunlight beaming underwater and the two monsters fighting. Even if it is Showa Manda, where as the time this was written, it was meant to be complete Millennium, but resources for Millennium Manda are really hard to come across unless you have an MMD model or something. But yeah.
Yeah, I assume the Millennium was the point of like the whole golden scales thing at the end.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but yeah, no, it's like a bit on the underwhelming side to me, despite a decent start. I don't know. This one just doesn't really hit. This one really just doesn't hit with me. So.
I guess I'll go next, and yeah, following up on KWC's point, I would tend to agree. This match is kind of quick, but you also don't remember it until it's done. Again, I think the most important part is just the golden scales ending and the humans on the boat. The fight itself kind of is too quick for its own good without enough detail to really make any lasting impression. And the ending, I think that the other issue is, like, the reason why I think of the ending with the golden scales, like, Manda's, it wasn't a memorable finisher, right? It was a slow death that the match takes note of, which isn't memorable, I'd say. It wasn't described memorably. Like, it could be, there's some detail there. Like, anyone will forget Bagan versus Manda. But I think
we'll remember it for always, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I think the story was there to make this a more memorable match, but it just wasn't executed as well. And the second half, just I agree with KWCs. The first half
had me in the first half. Not gonna lie.
So, yeah. So overall, I think this is just kind of I'd say an average KWC match. Nothing really exceptional or grand or memorable here. Just kind of like another average KWC match. The same way I'd say with the banner. I made this banner. I can tell you the most memorable part is that stupid boat. Overall, just kind of your bog standard. Kind of it's kind of like candy, right? You have it. It's adorable for a brief second, and then you don't think about it 5 minutes after you ate it.
So.
Yeah, but this is candy where you hear a crack while you're eating it. The candy in your tooth, and now you're worried.
I literally was thinking of Laffy Taffy as a candy when I was describing that. So you swallowed it. That's what happened. You swallowed.
But GVR, what'd you think of it?
Could Gaira even die in the way this match describes it? He can regenerate a whole new body from a hand.
Sufficient protein, which the ocean is chock full of, so.
So, would Manda even be able to kill him this way?
I mean, it's suffocation.
It's weird.
Kinda, right?
It's really weird.
He doesn't describe how Manda's grabbing him.
Yeah.
He just says Manda's constricting him, and that's it.
Yeah, but when you're being squeezed, you kind of can't breathe when you're being squeezed really tightly.
Anyway, this match exists. That's all I have to say. Banner's good.
That's fair. I think Gray Shot and I kind of covered a lot of the points and the faults of the match already, so it's whatever. It's there.
Like I said, pretty much forgot almost the entire
The only
thing
thing
as
I
soon as he finished
remember
reading.
aside from the fishing boat scene, the ending, is the part where Gaira picked up Manda, but it was only the mental image of it, not the actual execution, the writing of it. If that makes sense. So, Nagoda, what'd you think of it?
It's okay, basic KWC match. Banner looks nice. I like how the guy was like standing there menacing, kinda like, hey, look, I got my hands up. Manda is Showa Manda. Also, I remember like a long time ago, I didn't see that boat a long time ago, and then Greyshaw called me out on it.
Alrighty. I remember, the only other thing I remember from this match is the fact that it never registered to me that was Showa Manda. I remember, it took me years to register that was Showa Manda in this banner. I think at least 2 years, I think.
Yeah, Amanda, what are you doing in the middle of the ocean? Don't you got a city to be protecting?
The wrong Manda joined the fight, anyway. But yeah, never.
When Manda versus
hybridized,
Manda.
It's too late. Fair enough.
The KWCE
Wait,
then.
no, he was hybridized there too.
And just use one card.
Yeah, I don't think there's really too much to say with 152. Just exists, and it's sadly the things it does right is everything but the fight, which is funny because you think it'd be all about the fighting. But anyway,
Yeah, as a great reviewer once said,
Yep,
and I'm
pretty
going to
much.
forget about this in T-minus 1 day.
Except for me, I still have to edit it in post, so who knows? But I'll forget it after I edit it, so you know. I'll probably even forget the video actually exists anyway. But yeah, with that said, this has been match 152, and we will see you guys next time for match 153.